Oh, hello. We are starting streaming. Hopefully. That's... a second, I need to do the whole... It's having trouble starting streaming. Sound out. Okay. Right then. And hopefully that's working. Let's see if I can get some sound through here. And am I hearing anything? Probably. Alright, let's say we're good, I think. Oh, that does sound like it's working. Fantastic. I'm going to move that a little bit. Sorry about the noise. There we go. Right, so... why not? Oh! There we go. Boom. Got our book out. So apparently, a couple of people watched bits of the first part of this. The only useful, well, the only criticism I got was apparently I moved side to side too much because of the swivelly chair, and I think I'm going to keep doing that because apparently it didn't affect the sound. Obviously, the sound is the most important part of all this, and it's useful for me because if I look down and I don't see myself swinging, if you know what I mean, then that means that I know that something's gone wrong with the feed, which would be a bad thing. So there we go. Right. Oh. Oh, that's it. There you go. Hey Siri, 1 hour timer. Boom, we're in. Right, this time round I have a mug of water because it's now nearly 2 a.m. and when you come to an office block at 2 a.m. you might not get a glass. So let that be a lesson for you. So, Part 3, Night. Chapter 7. The night is mine, my own time, to do with as I will, as long as I am quiet, as long as I don't move, as long as I lie still. The difference between lie and lay. Lay is always passive. Even men used to say, I'd like to get laid, though sometimes they said, I'd like to lay her. All this is pure speculation. I don't really know what men used to say, I had only their words for it. I lie, then, inside the room, under the plaster eye in the ceiling, behind the white curtains, between the sheets, neatly as they, and step side... Oh, between the sheets, neatly as they, and step sideways out of my own time. Out of time. Though this is time. Though this is time, nor am I out of it. Okay. But the night is my time out. Where should I go? I feel like there's a better way to read that, but there we go. Let's keep going. Somewhere good. Moira, sitting on the edge of my bed, legs crossed, ankle on knee, in her purple overalls, one dangly earring, the gold fingernails she wore to be eccentric, a cigarette between her stubby yellow-ended fingers. Let's go for a beer. You're getting ashes in my bed, I said. If you'd make it, you wouldn't have this problem, said Moira. In half an hour, I said. I had a paper due the next day. What was it? Psychology, English, economics? We studied things like that, then. On the floor of the room there were books, open face down, this way and that, extravagantly. Now, said Moira, you don't need to paint your face, it's only me. What's your paper on? I just did one on date rape. Date rape, I said. You're so trendy. It sounds like some kind of dessert. Date repay. Ha-ha, said Moira. Get your coat. She got it herself and tossed it at me. I'm borrowing $5 off you, okay? Or in a park somewhere with my mother. How old was I? It It was cold. Our breaths came out in front of us. There were no leaves on the trees, grey sky, 2 ducks in the pond, disconsolate. Breadcrumbs under my fingers, in my pocket. That's it. She said we were going to feed the ducks. But there were some women burning books. That's what she was really there for. To see her friends. She'd lied to me. Saturdays were supposed to be my day. I turned away from her, sulking toward the ducks, but the fire drew me back. There were some men too, among the women, and the books were magazines. They must have poured gasoline because the flames shot high, and then they began dumping the magazines from boxes, not too many at a time. Some of them were chanting. Onlookers gathered. Their faces were happy, ecstatic almost. Fire can do that. Even my mother's face, usually pale, thinnish, looked ruddy and cheerful, like a Christmas card. And there was another woman, large, with a soot smear down her cheek and an orange knitted cap. I remember her. "You want to throw one on, honey?" she said. How old was I? "Good riddance to bad rubbish," she said, chuckling. "Yeah, okay," she said to my mother. "Oh, yeah, okay," she said to my mother. "If she wants to," my mother said. She had a way of talking about me to others as if I couldn't hear. The woman handed me one of the magazines. It had a pretty woman on it, with no clothes on, hanging from the ceiling by a chain wound around her hands. I looked at it with interest. It didn't frighten me. I thought she was swinging, like Tarzan from a vine, on the TV. "Don't let her see it," said my mother. "Here," she said to me. "Toss it in, quick." I threw the magazine into the flames. It riffled open in the wind of its burning. Big flakes of paper came loose, sailed into the air, still on fire. Parts of women's bodies turning to black ash in the air before my eyes. But then what happens? But then what happens? I know, I lost time. I know I lost time. There must have been needles, pills, something like that. I couldn't have lost that much time without help. "You have had a shock," they said. I would come up through a roaring confusion like surf boiling. I can remember feeling quite calm. I can remember screaming. It felt like screaming, though it may have been only a whisper. "Where is she? What have you done with her?" There was no night or day, only a flickering. After a while, there were chairs again, and a bed, and after that, a window. "She's in good hands," they said, "with people who are fit. You are unfit, but you want the best for her, don't you?" They showed me a picture of her, standing outside on the lawn, her face a closed oval. Her light hair was pulled back, tight behind her head. Holding her hand was a woman I didn't know. She was only as tall as the woman's elbow. "You've killed her," I said. She looked like an angel, solemn, compact, made of air. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen, white and down to the ground. I would like to believe this is a story I'm telling. I need to believe it. I would like to believe this is a story I'm telling. I need to believe it. I must believe it. Those who can believe that such stories are only stories have a better chance. If it's a story I'm telling, then I have control over the ending. Then there will be an ending to the story, and real life will come after it. I can pick up where I left off. It isn't a story I'm telling. It's also a story I'm telling in my head as I go along. It isn't a story I'm telling. It's also a story I'm telling in my head as I go along. Tell rather than write, because I have nothing to write with, and writing is in any case forbidden. But if it's a story, even in my head, I must be telling it to someone. You don't tell a story only to yourself. There's always someone else, even when there is no one. A story is like a letter. Dear you, I'll say, just you, without a name. Attaching a name attaches you to the world of facts, which is riskier, more hazardous. Who knows what the chances are out there of survival? Yours. I will say you like an old love song. You can mean more than one. You can mean thousands. I'm not in any immediate danger, I'll say to you. I'll pretend you can hear me. But it's no good, because I know you can't. Part 4, Waiting Room. Chapter 8. The good weather holds. It's almost like June, when we would get out our sundresses and our sandals and go for an ice cream cone. There are 3 new bodies on the wall. One is a priest, still wearing the black cassock. That's been put on him for the trial, even though they gave up wearing those years ago, when the sex wars first began. Cassocks made them too conspicuous. The 2 others have purple placards hung around their necks. Gender treachery. Their bodies still wear the Guardian uniforms. Caught together, they must have been. But where? A a barracks, a shower. It's hard to say. The snowman with the red smile is gone. We should go back, I say to Offglen. I'm always the one to say this. Sometimes I feel that if I didn't say it, she would stay here forever. But is she mourning or gloating? I still can't tell. Without a word she swivels, as if she's voice activated, as if she's on little oiled wheels, as if she's on top of a music box. I resent this grace of hers. I resent her meek head, bowed as if into a heavy wind. But there is no wind. We leave the wall, walk back the way we came, in the warm sun. It's a beautiful May day, Offglen says. I feel rather than see her head turn toward me, waiting for a reply. Yes, I say. Praise be, I add as an afterthought. May Day used to be a distress signal, a long time ago, in one of those wars we studied in high school. I kept getting them mixed up, but you could tell them apart by the airplanes if you paid attention. It was Luke who told me about May Day, though. May Day, for pilots whose plane had been hit, and ships. Was it ships too? At sea? Maybe it was SOS for ships. I wish I could look it up. And it was something from Beethoven, for the beginning of the victory in one of those wars. Do you know what it came from? Said Luke. May Day? No, I said. It's a strange word to use for that, isn't it? Newspapers and coffee on Sunday mornings, before she was born. There were still newspapers then. We used to read them in bed. It's French, he said, from m'aider. Help me. Coming towards us there's a small procession, a funeral. 3 women, each with a black transparent veil thrown over her headdress. An Econo wife and 2 others, the mourners, also Econo wives, her friends perhaps. Their striped dresses are worn looking, as are their faces. Some day, when time is improved, says Aunt Lydia, no one will have to be an Econo wife. The first one is the bereaved, the mother. She carries a small black jar. From the size of the jar you can tell how old it was when it foundered inside her, flowed to its death. 2 or 3 months too young to tell whether or not it was an unbaby. The older ones, and those that die at birth, have boxes. We pause out of respect while they go by. I wonder if Offglen feels what I do, a pain like a stab in the belly. We put our hands over our hearts to show these stranger women that we feel with them in our loss. Beneath her veil, the first one scowls at us. One of the others turns aside, spits on the sidewalk. The Econo wives do not like us. We go past the shops and come to the barrier again, and are passed through. We continue on among the large empty-looking houses, the weedless lawns. At the corner near the house where I'm posted, Offglen stops, turns to me. Under his eye, she says, the right farewell. Under his eye, I reply, and she gives a little nod. She hesitates, as if to say something more, but then she turns away and walks down the street. I watch her. She's like my own reflection, in a mirror from which I am moving away. In the driveway, Nick is polishing the whirlwind again. He's reached the chrome at the back. I put my gloved hand on the latch of the gate, open it, push inward. The gate clicks behind me. The tulips along the border are redder than ever, opening, no longer wine cups but chalices, thrusting themselves up. To what end? They are, after all, empty. When they are old, they turn themselves inside out, then explode slowly, the petals thrown out like shards. Nick looks up and begins to whistle. Then he says, "Nice walk." I nod, but do not answer with my voice. He isn't supposed to speak to me. Of course, some of them will try, said Aunt Lydia. All flesh is weak. All flesh is grass, I corrected her in my head. They can't help it, she said. God made them that way, but he did not make you that way. He made you different. It's up to you to set the boundaries. Later, you will be thanked. In the garden behind the house, the commander's wife is sitting, in the chair she brought out. Serena Joy. What a stupid name. It's like something you'd put on your hair the time before, to straighten it. Serena Joy, it would say on the bottle, with a woman's head in cut paper silhouette on a pink oval background with scalloped gold edges. With everything to choose from in the way of names, why did she pick that one? Serena Joy was never her real name, not even then. Her real name was Pam. I read that in a profile on her in a news magazine long after I'd first watched her singing while my mother slept in on Sunday mornings. By that time she was worthy of a profile. Time, or Newsweek it must have been. She wasn't singing anymore by then, she was making speeches. She was good at it. Her speeches were about the sanctity of the home, about how women should stay home. Serena Joy didn't do this herself. She had made speeches instead, but she presented this failure of hers as a sacrifice she was making for the good of all. Around that time, someone tried to shoot her and missed. Her secretary, who was standing right behind her, was killed instead. Someone else planted a bomb in her car, but it went off too early, though some people said she'd put the bomb in her own car for a sympathy. That's how hot things were getting. Luke and I would watch her sometimes on the late night news, bathrobes and nightcaps. We'd watch her sprayed hair and her hysteria, and the tears she could still produce at will, and the mascara blackening her cheeks. By that time she was wearing more makeup. We thought she was funny, or Luke thought she was funny. I only pretended to think so. Really, she was a little frightening. She was in earnest. She doesn't make speeches anymore. She has become speechless. She stays in her home, but it doesn't seem to agree with her. How furious she must be now that she's been taken at her word. She's looking at the tulips. Her cane is beside her on the grass. Her profile is towards me. I can see in the quick sideways look I take at her as I go past. Her profile is towards me. I can see that in the quick sideways look I take at her as I go past. It wouldn't do to stare. It's no longer a flawless cut paper profile. Her face is sinking in upon itself, and I think of those towns built on underground rivers, where houses and whole streets disappear overnight into sudden quagmires or coal towns collapsing into the mines beneath them. Something like this must have happened to her once she saw the true shape of things to come. She doesn't turn her head. She doesn't acknowledge my presence in any way, although she knows I'm there. I can tell she knows. It's like a smell. Her knowledge. Something gone sour, like old milk. It's not the husbands you have to watch out for, said Aunt Lydia. It's the wives. You should always try to imagine what they must be feeling. Of course, they will resent you. This is only natural. Try to feel for them. Aunt Lydia thought she was very good at feeling for other people. Try to pity them. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Again the tremulous smile of a beggar, the weak-eyed blinking, the gaze upwards through the round steel-rimmed glasses toward the back of the classroom, as if the green painted plaster ceiling were opening and God, on a cloud of pink pearl face powder, were coming down through the wires and sprinkler plumbing. You must realise that they are defeated women. They have been unable. Her voice broke off, and there was a pause, during which I could hear a sigh, a collective sigh from those around me. It was a bad idea to rustle or fidget during these pauses. Aunt Lydia might look abstracted, but she was aware of every twitch. So there was only the sigh. The future is in your hands, she resumed. She held her own hands out to us, the ancient gesture that was both an offering and an invitation to come forward into an embrace, an acceptance. In your hands, she said, looking down at her own hands as if they had given her the idea. But there was nothing in them. They were empty. It was our hands that were supposed to be full of the future, which could be held but not seen. I walk around to the back door, open it, go in, set my basket down on the kitchen table. The table has been scrubbed off, cleared of flour. Today's bread, freshly baked, is cooling on its rack. The kitchen smells of yeast, a nostalgic smell. It reminds me of the other kitchens that were mine. It smells of mothers, although my own mother did not make bread. It smells of me in former times when I was a mother. This is a treacherous smell, and I know I must shut it out. Rita is there, sitting at the table, peeling and slicing carrots. Old carrots they are, thick ones, overwintered, bearded from their time in storage. The new carrots, tender and pale, won't be ready for weeks. The knife she uses is sharp and bright and tempting. I would like to have a knife like that. Rita stops chopping the carrots, stands up, takes the parcels out of the basket, almost eagerly. She looks forward to seeing what I've brought, although she always frowns while opening the parcels. Nothing I bring fully pleases her. She's thinking she could have done better herself. She would rather do the shopping, get exactly what she wants. She envies me the walk. In this house, we all envy each other something. They've got oranges, I say, at Milk and Honey. There are still some left. I hold out this idea to her like an offering. I wish to ingratiate myself. I saw the oranges yesterday, but I didn't tell Rita yesterday. Yesterday she was too grumpy. I could get some tomorrow, if you'd give me the tokens for them. I hold out the chicken to her. She wanted steak today, but there wasn't any. Rita grunts, not revealing pleasure or acceptance. She'll think about it, the grunt says, in her own sweet time. She does the string on the chicken and she undoes the string on the chicken and the glazed paper. She prods the chicken, flexes a wing, pokes a finger into the cavity, fishes out the giblets. The chicken lies there, headless and without feet, goose-pimpled as though shivering. Bath day, Rita says, without looking at me. Cora comes into the kitchen from the pantry at the back, where they keep the mops and brooms. A chicken, she says, almost with delight. Scrawny, says Rita, but it'll have to do. There wasn't much else, I say. Rita ignores me. Looks big enough to me, says Cora. Is she standing up for me? I look at her to see if I should smile, but no. It's only the food she's thinking of. She's younger than Rita. The sunlight coming slant now through the west window catches her hair, parted and drawn back. She must have been pretty, quite recently. There's a little mark like a dimple in each of her ears, where the punctures for earrings have grown over. Tall, said Rita, but bony. You should speak up, she says to me, looking directly at me for the first time. Ain't like you're common. She means the commander's rank. But in the other sense, her sense, she thinks I am common. She is over 60. Her mind's made up. She goes to the sink, runs her hand briefly under the tap, dries them on the dish towel. The dish towel is white with blue stripes. Dish towels are the same as they always were. Sometimes these flashes of normality come at me from the side, like ambushes. The ordinary, the usual, a reminder like a kick. I see the dish towel out of context and I catch my breath. In some ways, things haven't changed that much. Who's doing the bath? Says Rita to Cora, not to me. I got to tenderise this bird. I'll do it later, says Cora, after the dusting. Just so it gets done, says Rita. They're talking about me as though I can't hear. To them, I'm a household chore, one among many. I've been dismissed. I pick up the basket, go through the kitchen door and along the hall towards the grandfather clock. The sitting room door is closed. Sun comes through the fanlight, falling in colours across the floor, red and blue, purple. I step into it briefly, stretch out my hands, they fill with flowers of light. I go up the stairs, my face distant and white and distorted, framed in the hall mirror, which bulges outward like an eye under pressure. I follow the dusty pink runner down the long upstairs hallway, back to the room. There's someone standing in the hall, near the door to the room where I stay. The hall is dusky. This is a man, his back to me. He's looking into the room, dark against its light. I can see now. It's the commander. He isn't supposed to be here. He hears me coming, turns, hesitates, walks forward, towards me. He is violating custom. What do I do now? I stop. He pauses. I can't see his face. He's looking at me. What does he want? But then he moves forward again, steps to the side to avoid touching me, inclines his head, is gone. Something has been shown to me, but what is it? Like the flag of an unknown country, seen for an instant above a curve of a hill, it could mean attack. It could mean parley. It could mean the edge of something, a territory. The signals animals give one another, lowered blue eyelids, ears laid back, raised hackles, a flash of bare teeth. What in hell does he think he's doing? Nothing else has seen him. Nobody else has seen him, I hope. Was he invading? Was he in my room? I called it mine. Whew. Oh. I think Margaret Atwood does like playing with words. So. Chapter 9. My room, then. There has to be some space, finally, that I claim as mine, even in this time. I'm waiting in my room, which right now is a waiting room. When I go to bed, it's a bedroom. The curtains are still wavering in the small wind. The sun outside is still shining, though not in through the window directly. It has moved west. I am trying not to tell stories, or at any rate not this one. Someone has lived in this room before me. Someone like me, or I prefer to believe so. I discovered it 3 days after I was moved here. I had a lot of time to pass. I decided to explore the room, not hastily as one would explore a hotel room, expecting no surprise, opening and shutting the desk drawers, the cupboard doors, unwrapping the tiny individually wrapped bar of soap, prodding the pillows. Will I ever be in a hotel room again? How I wasted them, those rooms, that freedom from being seen, rented license. In the afternoons, when Luke was still in flight from his wife, when I was still imaginary for him, before we were married and I solidified, I would always get there first, check in. It wasn't that many times, but it seems now like a decade, an era. I can remember what I wore, each blouse, each scarf. I would pace waiting for him, turn the television on and then off, dab behind my ears with perfume. Opium it was. It came in a Chinese bottle, red and gold. I was nervous. How was I to know he loved me? It might be just an affair. Why did we ever say just? Though at that time men and women tried each other on, casually, like suits rejecting whatever did not fit. The knock would come at the door. I'd open, with relief, desire. He was so momentary, so condensed, and yet there seemed no end to him. We would lie in those afternoon beds, afterwards, hands on each other, talking it over. Possible, impossible. What could be done? We thought we had such problems, but were we to know we were happy? How were we to know we were happy? But now it's the rooms themselves I miss as well. Even the dreadful paintings that hung on the walls, landscapes with full foliage, or snow melting in hardwoods, or women in period costume with china doll faces and bustles and parasols, or sad-eyed clowns, or bowls of fruit, stiff and chalky looking. The fresh towels ready for spoilage, the wastebaskets gaping their invitations, beckoning in the careless junk. Careless. I was careless in those rooms. I could lift the telephone and food would appear on a tray. Food I had chosen. Food that was bad for me, no doubt, and drink too. There were Bibles in the dresser drawers, but put there by some charitable society, though probably no one read them very much. There were postcards too, with pictures of the hotel on them, and you could write on the postcards and send them to anyone you wanted. It seemed like such an impossible thing now, like something you'd make up. So, I explored this room, not hastily then, like a hotel room, wasting it. I didn't want to do it all at once. I wanted to make it last. I divided the room into sections, in my head. I allowed myself one section a day. This one section I would examine with the greatest minuteness. The unevenness of the plaster under the wallpaper, the scratches in the paint of the baseboard in the windowsill, under the top coat of paint, the stains on the mattress, for I went so far as to lift the blankets and sheets from the bed, fold them back a little at a time, so they could be replaced quickly if anyone came. The stains on the mattress, like dried flower petals, not recent. Old love. There's no other kind of love in this room now. When I saw that, that's evidence left by two people of love or something like it, desire at least touch, between two people now perhaps old or dead. I covered the bed again and lay down on it. I looked up at the blind plaster eye in the ceiling. I wanted to feel Luke lying beside me. I have them, these attacks of the past, like faintness. A wave sweeping over my head. Sometimes it can hardly be borne. What is to be done? What is to be done, I thought. There is nothing to be done. They all serve who only stand and wait, or lie down and wait. I know why the glass in the window is shatterproof, and why they took down the chandelier. The chandelier. I wanted to feel Luke lying beside me, but there wasn't room. I saved the cupboard until the third day. I looked carefully over the door first, inside and out, then the walls with their brass hooks. How could they have overlooked the hooks? Why didn't they remove them? Too close to the floor? Too close to the floor? But still, a stocking, that's all you need. And the rod with the plastic hangers, my dresses hanging on them. The red woolen cape for cold weather, the shawl. I knelt to examine the floor, and there it was, in tiny writing, quite fresh it seemed, scratched with a pin, or maybe just a fingernail. In the corner where the darkest shadow fell, Nolite te bastades carborundum. Carborundorum. Nolite te bastades carborundorum. I didn't know what it meant, or even what language it was in. I thought it might be Latin, but I didn't know any Latin. Still, it was a message, and it was in writing, forbidden by that very fact. and it hadn't yet been discovered, except by me, for whom it was intended. It was intended for whoever came next. It pleases me to ponder this message. It pleases me to think I'm communing with her, this unknown woman, for she is unknown, or if known, she has never been mentioned to me. It pleases me to know that her taboo message made it through, to at least one other person, washed itself up on the wall of my cupboard, was opened and read by me. Sometimes I repeat the words to myself. They give me a small joy. When I imagine the woman who wrote them, I think of her as about my age, maybe a little younger. I turn her into Moira. Moira as she was when she was in college, in the room next to mine, quirky, jaunty, athletic, with a bicycle once and a knapsack for hiking. Freckles, I think. Irreverent. Resourceful. I wonder who she was or is, and what's become of her. I tried that out on Rita the day I found the message. Who was the woman who stayed in that room? I said. Before me. Before me. Before me. If I'd asked it differently, if I'd said, was there a woman who stayed in that room before me? I might not have got anywhere. Which one? Which one? She said. She sounded grudging, suspicious, but then she almost always sounds like that when she speaks to me. So there have been more than one. Some haven't stayed their full term of posting, their full 2 years. Some have been sent away for one reason or another. Or maybe not sent. Gone? The lively one, I was guessing. The one with freckles. You know her? Rita asked, more suspicious than ever. I knew her, I lied. I heard she was here. Rita accepted this. She knew there must be a grapevine, an underground of sorts. She didn't work out, she said. In what way? I asked, trying to sound as neutral as possible. But Rita clamped her lips together. I am like a child here. There are some things I must not be told. What you don't know won't hurt you, was all she would say. Chapter 10. Sometimes I sing to myself, in my head, something lugubrious, mournful, Presbyterian. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, could save a wretch like me, who once was lost but now am found, was bound but now am free. I don't know if the words are right, I can't remember. Such songs are not sung anymore in public, especially the ones that use words like free. They are considered too dangerous. They belong to outlawed sects. I feel so lonely, baby. I feel so lonely, baby. I feel so lonely I could die. This too is outlawed. I know it from an old cassette tape of my mother's. She had a scratchy and untrustworthy machine too that could still play such things. She used to put the tape on when her friends came over and they'd had a few drinks. I don't sing like this often. It makes my throat hurt. There isn't much music in this house except what we hear on the TV. Sometimes Rita will hum while kneading or peeling. A wordless humming, tuneless, unfathomable. And sometimes from the front sitting room there will be the thin sound of Serena's voice from a disc made long ago and played now with the volume low so she won't be caught listening as she sits there knitting, remembering her own former and now amputated glory. Hallelujah. It's warm for this time of year. Houses like this heat up in the sun. There's not enough insulation. Around me the air is stagnant. Despite the little current, the breath coming in past the curtains. I'd like to be able to open the window as wide as it could go. Soon we'll be allowed to change into the summer dresses. The summer dresses are unpacked and hanging in the closet, 2 of them, pure cotton, which is better than synthetics like the cheaper ones, though even so, when it's muggy in July and August, you sweat inside them. No worry about sunburn though, said Aunt Lydia. The spectacles women used to make of themselves, oiling themselves like roast meat on a spit and bare backs and shoulders on the street in public and legs, not even stockings on them. No wonder those things used to happen. Things, the word she used whenever it stood for what. The word she used when whatever it stood for was too distasteful or filthy or horrible to pass her lips. A successful life for her was one that avoided things, excluded things. Such things do not happen to nice women, and not good for the complexion, not at all. Wrinkle you up like a dried apple. But we weren't supposed to care about our complexions anymore. She'd forgotten that. In the park, said Aunt Lydia, lying on blankets, men and women together sometimes, and at that she began to cry, standing up there in front of us, in full view. I'm doing my best, she said. I'm trying to give you the best chance you can have. She blinked. The light was too strong for her. Her mouth trembled, around her front teeth, teeth that stuck out a little and were long and yellowish, and I thought about the dead mice we would find on our doorstep when we lived in a house, all three of us, 4 counting our cat. Who was the one making these offerings? Aunt Lydia pressed her hand over her mouth of a dead rodent. Aunt Lydia pressed her hand over her mouth of a dead rodent. After a minute she took her hand away. I wanted to cry too because she reminded me. If only she wouldn't eat half of them first, I said to Luke. Don't think it's easy for me either, said Aunt Lydia. Moira, breezing into my room, dropping her denim jacket on the floor. Got any cigs, she said. In my purse, I said. No matches though. Moira rummages in my purse. You should throw out some of this junk, she says. I'm giving an underhaul party. Oh, what? I said. There's no point trying to work. Moira won't allow it. She's like a cat that crawls on the page when you're trying to read. You know, like Tupperware, only with underwear. Tart stuff. Lace crotches, snap garters, bras that push your tits up. She finds my lighter, lights the cigarette she's extracted from my purse. Want one? Tosses the package with great generosity considering they're mine. Thanks, Piles, I say sourly. You're crazy. Where'd you get an idea like that? Working my way through college, says Moira. I've got connections. Friends of my mother's. It's big in the suburbs. Once they start getting age spots, they figure they've got to beat the competition. The porno marts and what have you. I'm laughing. She always made me laugh. But here, I said, who'll come? Who needs it? You're never too young to learn, she says. Come on, it'll be great. We'll all pee our pants laughing. Is that how we live then? But we lived as usual. Everyone does, most of the time. Whatever is going on as usual, even this is as usual now. We lived as usual by ignoring. Ignoring isn't the same as ignorance. You have to work at it. Nothing changes instantaneously. In a gradually heating bathtub, you'd be boiled to death before you knew it. There were stories in the newspapers, of course. Corpses in ditches or the woods, bludgeoned to death or mutilated, interfered with, as they used to say, but they were about other women. And the men who did such things were other men. None of them were the men we knew. The newspaper stories were like dreams to us. Bad dreams, dreamt by others. How awful, we would say. And they were. But they were awful without being believable. They were too melodramatic. They had a dimension that was not the dimension of our lives. We were the people who were not in papers. We lived in the blank white spaces at the edge of the print. It gave us more freedom. We lived in the gaps between the stories. From below, from the driveway, comes the sound of the car being started. It's quiet in this area. There isn't a lot of traffic. You can hear things like that very clearly. Car motors, lawn mowers, the clipping of a hedge, the slam of a door. You could hear a shout clearly, or a shot, if such noises were ever made here. Sometimes there are distant sirens. I go to the window and sit on the window seat, which is too narrow for comfort. There's a hard little cushion on it, with a petty point cover, Faith, in square print, surrounded by a wreath of lilies. Faith is a faded blue. The leaves of the lilies are dingy green. This is a cushion once used elsewhere, worn but not enough to throw out. Somehow it's been overlooked. I can spend minutes, tens of minutes, running my eyes over the print. Faith. It's the only thing they've ever given me to read. If I were caught doing it, would it count? I didn't put the cushion here myself. The motor turns and I lean forward, pulling the white curtain across my face like a veil. It's semi-sheer. I can see through it. If I press my forehead against the glass and look down, I can see the black half of the whirlwind. Nobody is there, but as I watch, I see Nick come around to the back door of the car, open it, stand stiffly beside it. His cap is straight now, and his sleeves rolled down and buttoned. I can't see his face because I'm looking down on him. Now the commander is coming out. I glimpse him only for an instant, foreshortened, walking to the car. He doesn't have his hat on, so it's not a formal event he's going to. His hair is grey. Silver, you might call it, if you are being kind. I don't feel like being kind. The one before this was bald, so I suppose he's an improvement. If I could spit out the window or throw something, the cushion for instance, I might be able to hit him. Moira and I, with paper bags filled with water bombs, they were called, leaning out my dorm window, dropping them on the heads of the boys below. It was Moira's idea, but what were they trying to do? Climb a ladder for something, for our underwear. The dormitory had once been co-educational. There were still urinals in one of the washrooms on our floor, but by the time I got there, they put the men and women back the way they were. The commander stoops, gets into the car, disappears, and Nick shuts the door. A moment later, the car moves backwards, down the driveway and onto the street, and vanishes behind the hedge. I ought to feel hatred for this man. I know I ought to feel it, but it isn't what I do feel. What I feel is more complicated than that. I don't know what to call it. It isn't love. Chapter 11. Yesterday morning I went to the doctor, was taken by a guardian, one of those with the red armbands who are in charge of such things. We rode in a red car, him in the front, me in the back. No twin went with me on these occasions. I'm solitaire. On these occasions, I'm solitaire. I'm taken to the doctors once a month for tests. Urine, hormones, cancer smear, blood test. The same as before, except that now it's obligatory. The doctor's office is in a modern office building. We ride up in the elevator silently, the guardian facing me. In the black mirror wall of the elevator, I can see the back of his head. At the office itself, I go in. He waits outside in the hall. He waits outside in the hall with the other guardians on one of the chairs placed there for that purpose. Inside the waiting room, there are other women, 3 of them in red. This doctor is a specialist. Covertly, we regard each other, sizing up each other's bellies. Is anyone lucky? The nurse records our names and the numbers from our passes on the CompuDoc to see if we are who we are supposed to be. He's 6 feet tall, about 40. A diagonal scar across his cheek. He sits typing, his hands too big for the keyboard, still wearing his pistol in the shoulder holster. When I'm called, I go through the doorway into the inner room. It's white, featureless. Like the outer one, except for a folding screen, red cloth stretched on a frame, a gold eye painted on it, with a snake twined sword upright beneath it, like a sort of handle. The snakes and the sword are bits of broken symbolism left over from the time before. After I fill the small bottle left ready for me in the little washroom, I take off my clothes, behind the screen, and leave them folded on the chair. When I'm naked, I lie down on the examining table, on the sheet of chilly crackling disposable paper. I pull the second sheet, the cloth one, up over my body. At neck level there's another sheet, suspended from the ceiling. It intersects me so that the doctor will never see my face. He deals with a torso only. When I'm arranged, I reach my hand out, fumble for the small lever at the right side of the table, pull it back. Somewhere else a bell rings, unheard by me. After a minute the door opens, footsteps come in, there is breathing. He isn't supposed to speak to me except when it's absolutely necessary, but this doctor is talkative. "How are things getting along?" he says, some tick of speech from the other time. The sheet is lifted from my skin. A draught pimples me. A cold finger, rubber-clad and jellied, slides into me. I am poked and prodded. The finger retreats, enters otherwise, withdraws. "Nothing wrong with you," the doctor says, as if to himself. "Any pain, honey?" He calls me honey. "No," I say. My breasts are fingered in their turn. A search for ripeness, rot. The breathing comes nearer. I smell old smoke, aftershave, tobacco dust on hair. Then the voice, very soft, close to my head. That's him, bulging the sheet. "I could help you," he says, whispers. "What?" I say. "Shh," he says. "I could help you. I've helped others." "Help me?" I say, my voice as low as his. "How? Does he know something? Has he seen Luke? Has he found? Can he bring back?" "How do you think?" he says, still barely breathing. still barely breathing it. Is that his hand sliding up my leg? He's taken off the glove. The door's locked. No one will come in. They'll never know it isn't his. He lifts the sheet. The lower part of his face is covered by the white gauze mask. Regulation. 2 brown eyes, a nose, a head with brown hair on it. His hand is between my legs. Most of these old guys can't make it anymore, he says, or they're sterile. I almost gasp. He said a forbidden word. Sterile. There is no such thing as a sterile man anymore, not officially. There are only women who are fruitful and women who are barren. That's the law. Lots of women do it, he goes on. You want a baby, don't you? Yes, I say. It's true, and I don't ask why, because I know. Give me children or else I die. There's more than one meaning to it. You're soft, he says. It's time. Today or tomorrow would do it. Well, why waste it? It'd only take a minute, honey. What he called his wife once, maybe still does, but really it's a generic term. We are all honey. I hesitate. He's offering himself to me, his services at some risk to himself. I hate to see what they put you through, he murmurs. It's genuine sympathy, and yet he's enjoying this sympathy. Sympathy and all. His eyes are moist with compassion. His hand is moving on me, nervously and with impatience. It's too dangerous, I say. No, I can't. The penalty is death, but they have to catch you in the act, with 2 witnesses. What are the odds? Is the room bugged? Who's waiting just outside the door? His hand stops. Think about it, he says. I've seen your chart. You don't have a lot of time left, but it's your life. Thank you, I said. I must leave the impression that I'm not offended, that I'm open to suggestion. He takes his hand away, lazily almost, lingeringly. This is not the last word as far as he's concerned. He could fake the tests, report me for cancer, for infertility, have me shipped off to the colonies with the unwomen. None of this has been said, but the knowledge of his power hangs nevertheless in the air as he pats my thigh, withdraws himself behind the hanging sheet. Next month, he says. I put on my clothes again, behind the screen. My hands are shaking. Why am I frightened? I've crossed no boundaries. I've given no trust, taken no risk. All is safe. It's the choice that terrifies me. A way out. A salvation. Oh, my eyes are not working right. Let's carry on. Chapter 12. The bathroom is beside the bedroom. It's papered in small blue flowers, forget-me-nots, with curtains to match. There's a blue bath mat, a blue fake fur cover on the toilet seat. All this bathroom lacks from the time before is a doll whose skirt conceals the extra roll of toilet paper. Except that the mirror over the sink has been taken out and replaced by an oblong of tin, and the door has no lock, and there are no razors, of course. There were incidents in bathrooms at first. There were cuttings, drownings, before they got all the bugs ironed out. Cora sits on a chair outside in the hall to see that no one else goes in. In a bathroom, in a bathtub, you are vulnerable, said Aunt Lydia. She didn't say to what. The bath is a requirement, but it is also a luxury. Merely to lift off the heavy white wings and the veil, merely to feel my own hair again with my hands is a luxury. My hair is long now, untrimmed. Hair must be long but covered, Aunt Lydia said. St. Paul said it's either that or a close shave. She laughed. That held back neighing of hers as if she'd told a joke. Cora has run the bath. It steams like a bowl of soup. I take off the rest of the clothes, the overdress, the white shift and petticoats, the red stockings, the loose cotton pantaloons. Pantyhose gives you crotch rot, Moira used to say. Aunt Lydia would never have used an expression like crotch rot. Unhygienic was hers. She wanted everything to be very hygienic. My nakedness is strange to me already. My body seems outdated. Did I really wear bathing suits at the beach? I did, without thought among men, without caring that my legs, my arms, my thighs and back were on display, could be seen. Shameful, immodest. I avoid looking down at my body, not so much because it's shameful or immodest, but because I don't want to see it. I don't want to look at something that determines me so completely. I step into the water, lie down, let it hold me. The water is soft as hands. I close my eyes and she's there with me, suddenly, without warning. It must be the smell of the soap. I put my face against the soft hair at the back of her neck and breathe her in, baby powder and child's washed flesh, and shampoo with an undertone, the faint scent of urine. This is the age she is, when I'm in the bath. She comes back to me at different ages. This is how I know she's not really a ghost. If she were a ghost, she would be the same age always. One day, when she was 11 months old, just before she began to walk, a woman stole her out of a supermarket cart. It was a Saturday, which was when Luke and I did the week shopping, because both of us had jobs. She was sitting in the little baby seats that they had then in the supermarket carts, with holes for the legs. She was happy enough, and I turned my back, the cat food section I think it was. Luke was over at the side of the store, out of sight, at the meat counter. He liked to choose what kind of meat we were going to eat during the week. He said men needed more meat than women did, and that it wasn't superstition, and he wasn't being a jerk. Studies had been done. There are some differences, he said. He was fond of saying that, as if I was trying to prove there weren't, but mostly he said it when my mother was there. He liked to tease her. I heard her start to cry. I turned around and she was disappearing down the aisle, in the arms of a woman I'd never seen before. I screamed and the woman was stopped. She must have been about 35. She was crying and saying it was her baby. The Lord had given it to her. He'd sent her a sign. I felt sorry for her. The store manager apologised and they held her until the police came. She's just crazy, Luke said. I thought it was an isolated instance at the time. She fades. I can't keep her here with me. She's gone now. Maybe I do think of her as a ghost, the ghost of a dead girl, a little girl who died when she was 5. I remember the pictures of us I had once, me holding her, standard poses, mother and baby locked in a frame for safety. Behind my closed eyes I can see myself as I am now, sitting beside an open drawer or a trunk in the cellar where the baby clothes are folded away, a lock of hair, cut when she was 2, in an envelope, white blonde. It got darker later. I don't have those things anymore. The clothes and hair. I wonder what happened to all our things. Looted, dumped out, carried away, confiscated. I've learned to do without a lot of things. If you have a lot of things, said Aunt Lydia, you get too attached to the material world and you forget about spiritual values. You must cultivate poverty of spirit. Blessed are the meek. She didn't go on to say anything about the inheriting the earth. I lie, lapped by the water, beside an open drawer that does not exist, and think about a girl who did not die when she was 5, who still does exist, I hope, though not for me. Do I exist for her? Am I a picture somewhere in the dark at the back of her mind? They must have told her I was dead. That's what they would think of doing. They would say it would be easier for her to adjust. 8 she must be now. I filled in the time I lost. I know how much there's been. They were right, it's easier to think of her as dead. I don't have to hope then, or make a wasted effort. Why bash your head, said Aunt Lydia, against a wall. Sometimes she had a graphic way of putting things. I ain't got all day, said Cora's voice outside the door. It's true, she hasn't. She hasn't got all of anything. I must not deprive her of her time. I soap myself, use the scrub brush and the piece of pumice for sanding off the dead skin. Such Puritan aids are supplied. I wish to be totally clean, germless, without bacteria, like the surface of the moon. I will not be able to wash myself this evening, and not afterwards, not for a day. It interferes, they say, and why take chances? I cannot avoid seeing now the small tattoo on my ankle, 4 digits and an I, a passport in reverse. It's supposed to guarantee that I will never be able to fade, finally, into another landscape. I am too important, too scarce for that. I am a national resource. I pull the plug, dry myself, put on my red terry cloth robe. I leave today's dress here, where Cora will pick it up to be washed. Back in the room I dress again. The white headdress isn't necessary for the evening, because I won't be going out. Everything in this house knows what my face looks like. Everyone in this house knows what my face looks like. The red veil goes on, though, covering my damp hair, my head, which has not been shaved. Where did I see that film about the women kneeling in the town together, hands holding them, their hair falling in clumps. Where had they done? It must have been a long time ago, because I can't remember. Cora brings my supper, covered on a tray. She knocks at the door before entry. I like her for that. It means she thinks I have some of what you used to call privacy left. Thank you, I say, taking the tray from her, and she actually smiles at me, but she turns away without answering. When we're alone together, she's shy of me. I put the tray on a small white painted table and draw the chair up to it. I take the cover off the tray, the thigh of a chicken overcooked. It's better than bloody, which is the other way she does it. Rita has ways of making her resentment felt. A baked potato, green beans, salad. Canned pears for dessert. It's good enough food, though bland. Healthy food. You have to get your vitamins and minerals, said Aunt Lydia, coyly. You must be a worthy vessel. No coffee or tea, though. No alcohol. Studies have been done. There's a paper napkin, as in cafeterias. I think of the others, those without. This is the heartland here. I'm leading a pampered life. May the Lord make us truly grateful, said Aunt Lydia. Was it thankful? And I start to eat the food. I'm not hungry tonight. Or was it thankful? And I start to eat the food. I'm not hungry tonight. I feel sick to my stomach. But there's no place to put the food, no potted plants, and I won't chance the toilet. I'm too nervous. That's what it is. Could I leave it on the plate? Ask Cora not to report me. I chew and swallow, feeling the sweat come out in my stomach. The food balls itself together. A handful of damp cardboard squeezed. Downstairs in the dining room, there will be candles on the large mahogany table, a white cloth, silver, flowers, wine glasses with wine in them. There will be the click of knives against china, a clink as she sets down her fork, with a barely audible sigh, leaving half the contents of her plate untouched. Possibly she will say she has no appetite. Possibly she won't say anything. If she says something, does he comment? If she doesn't say anything, does he notice? I wonder how she manages to get herself noticed. I think it must be hard. There's a pat of butter on the side of the plate. I tear off a corner of the paper napkin, wrap the butter in it, take it to the cupboard and slip it into the toe of my right shoe from the extra pair I have done before. I crumple up the rest of the napkin. No one, surely, will bother to smooth it out, to check if any is missing. I will use the butter later tonight. It would not do this evening to smell of butter. I compose myself. Myself is a thing I must now compose, as one composes a speech. What I must present is a made thing, not something born. Whew, I'm getting tired. Oh, balls. Have I not got the timer on? I have not got the timer on. That can't be right. Well, it's nearly 3, and I'm pretty sure I said it was 2 when I started. And for some reason, the timer isn't working on my phone. It's set to 1 hour, just hasn't been started. So, there we go. I'm going to have to trust that I've done about an hour. Oh wait, I know, I can say exactly how much I've done. I've done 58 minutes and 32 seconds. Let's see, how long does this chapter go on for, this part go on for? Okay. One more. Even though my mouth has stopped working. Part 5. Nap. Put it back down. There we go. Chapter 13. There's time to spare. This is one of the things I wasn't prepared for. The amount of unfilled time. The long parentheses of nothing. Time as white as sound. If only I could embroider, weave, knit. Something to do with my hands. I want a cigarette. I remember walking in art galleries through the 19th century. The obsession they had then with harems. Dozens of paintings of harems, fat women lolling on divans, turbans on their heads or velvet caps, being fanned with peacock tails, a eunuch in the background standing guard. Studies of sedentary flesh, painted by men who'd never been there. These pictures were supposed to be erotic, and I thought they were at the time, but I see now what they were really about. They were paintings about suspended animation, about waiting, about objects not in use. They were paintings about boredom, but maybe boredom is erotic when women do it, for men. I wait, washed, brushed, fed like a prized pig. Sometime in the 80s they invented pig balls, for pigs who were being fattened in pens. Pig balls were large coloured balls. The pigs rolled around them with their snouts. The pig marketers said this improved their muscle tone. The pigs were curious. They liked to have something to think about. I read about that in Introduction to Psychology, that and the chapter on caged rats who'd give themselves electric shocks for something to do, and the one on the pigeons, trained to peck a button which made a grain of corn appear. 3 groups of them. The first got 1 grain per peck, the second 1 grain every other peck, the third was random. When the man in charge cut off the grain, the first group gave up quite soon, the second group a little later, the third group never gave up. They'd pecked themselves to death rather than quit. Who knew what worked? I wish I had a pig ball. I lie down on the braided rug. You can always practice, said Aunt Lydia. Several sessions a day, fitted into your daily routine. Arms at the sides, knees bent, lift the pelvis, roll the backbone down, tuck again. Breathe into the count of 5, hold, expel. We do that in what used to be the domestic science room, cleared now of sewing machines and washer dryers, in unison, lying on little Japanese mats, a tape playing, les sylphides. That's what I hear now in my head as I lift, tilt, breathe. Behind my closed eyes, thin white dancers flit gracefully among the trees, their legs fluttering like the wings of held birds. In the afternoons we lay on our beds for an hour in the gymnasium between 3 and 4. For an hour in the gymnasium between 3 and 4. They said it was a period of rest and meditation. I thought then they did it because they wanted some time off themselves from teaching us, and I know the aunts not on duty went off to the teacher's room for a cup of coffee, or whatever they called by that name. But now I think that the rest also was practice. They were giving us a chance to get used to blank time. A catnap, Aunt Lydia called it, in her coy way. The strange thing is, we needed the rest. Many of us went to sleep. We were tired there a lot of the time. We were on some kind of pill or drug, I think. They put it in the food to keep us calm. But maybe not. Maybe it was the place itself. After the first shock, after you'd come to terms, it was better to be lethargic. You could tell yourself you were saving up your strength. I must have been there 3 weeks when Moira came. She was brought to the gymnasium by 2 of the aunts in the usual way, while we were having our nap. She still had her other clothes on, jeans and a blue sweatshirt. Her hair was short. She defied fashion as usual, so I recognised her at once. She saw me too, but she turned away. She already knew what was safe. There was a bruise on her left cheek, turning purple. The aunts took her to a vacant bed. The aunts took her to a vacant bed where the red dress was already laid out. She undressed, began to dress again in silence. The aunts standing at the end of the bed, the rest of us watching from inside our slitted eyes. As she bent over, I could see the knobs on her spine. I couldn't talk to her for several days. We looked only, small glances like sips. Friendships were suspicious, we knew it. We avoided each other during the mealtime line-ups in the cafeteria and in the halls between the classes. But on the 4th day, she was beside me during the walk, 2 by 2 around the football field. We weren't given the white wings until we graduated. We had only the veils, so we could talk, as long as we did it quietly and didn't turn to look at one another. The aunts walked at the head of the line and at the end, so the only danger was from the others. Some were believers and might report us. "This is a loony bin," Moira said. "I'm so glad to see you," I said. "Where can we talk?" said Moira. "Washroom," I said. "Watch the clock. End stall, 2:30. That was all we said. It makes me feel safer that Moira is here. We can go to the washroom if we put our hands up, though there's a limit to how many times a day. They mark it down on a chart. I watch the clock, electric and round, at the front over the green blackboard. 2:30 comes during testifying. Aunt Helena is here, as well as Aunt Lydia, because testifying is special. Aunt Helena is fat. She once headed a Weight Watchers franchise operation in Iowa. She's good at testifying. It's Janine, telling about how she was gang raped at 14 and had an abortion. She told the same story last week. She seems almost proud of it while she was telling. It may not even be true. At testifying, it's safer to make things up than to say you have nothing to reveal. But since it's Janine, it's probably more or less true. But whose fault was it? Aunt Helena says, holding up one plump finger. Her fault. Her fault. Her fault. We chant in unison. Who led them on? Aunt Helena beams, pleased with us. She did. She did. She did. Why did God allow such a terrible thing to happen? Teach her a lesson. Teach her a lesson. Teach her a lesson. Last week, Janine burst into tears. Aunt Helena made her kneel at the front of the classroom, hands behind her back, where we could all see her, her red face and dripping nose, her hair dull blonde, her eyelashes so light they seemed not there, the lost eyelashes of someone who's been in a fire. Burned eyes. She looked disgusting, weak, squirmy, blotchy, pink, like a newborn mouse. None of us wanted to look like that. Ever. For a moment, even though we knew what was being done to her, we despised her. Crybaby, crybaby, crybaby. We meant it, which is the bad part. I used to think well of myself. I didn't then. That was last week. This week, Janine doesn't wait for us to jeer at her. It was my fault, she says. It was my own fault. I led them on. I deserved the pain. Very good, Janine, says Aunt Lydia. You are an example. I have to wait until this is over before I put up my hand. Sometimes, if you ask at the wrong moment, they say, no. If you really have to go, that can be crucial. Yesterday, Dolores wet the floor. 2 aunts hauled her away, a hand under each armpit. She wasn't there for the afternoon walk, but at night she was back in her usual bed. All night we could hear her moaning, off and on. What did they do to her? We whispered from bed to bed. I don't know. Not knowing makes it worse. I raise my hand. Aunt Lydia nods. I stand up and walk out into the hall, as inconspicuously as possible. Outside the washroom, Aunt Elizabeth is standing guard. She nods, signalling that I can go in. The washroom used to be for boys. The mirrors have been replaced there by 2 oblongs of dull grey metal, but the urinals are still there, on one wall, white enamel with yellow stains. They look oddly like babies' coffins. I marvel again at the nakedness of men's lives, the showers right out in the open, the body exposed for inspection and comparison, the public display of privates. What is it for? What purpose of reassurance does it serve? The flashing of a badge. Look, everyone, all is in order. I belong here. Why don't women have to prove to one another they are women? Some form of unbuttoning, some split crotch routine, just as casual, a dog-like sniffing. The high school is old. The stalls are wooden, some kind of chipboard. I go into the second one from the end, swing the door to. Of course, there are no longer any locks. In the wood, there's a small hole at the back, next to the wall, about waist height, souvenir of some previous vandalism or legacy of an ancient voyeur. Everyone in the centre knows about this hole in the woodwork, everyone except the aunts. I'm afraid I am too late, held up by Janine's testifying. Maybe Moira has been here already. Maybe she had to go back. They don't give you much time. I look carefully down, a slant under the stall wall, and there are 2 red shoes. But how can I tell who it is? I put my mouth to the wooden hole. Moira? I whisper. Is that you? She says. Yes, I say. Relief goes through me. God, do I need a cigarette, says Moira. Me too, I say. I feel ridiculously happy. I sink down into my body as into a swamp, fenland, where only I know the footing. Treacherous ground, my own territory. I become the earth I set my ear against for rumours of the future. Each twinge, each murmur of slight pain, ripples of sloughed off matter, swellings and diminishings of tissues, the drawlings of the flesh, these are signs, these are the things I need to know about. Each month I watch for blood, fearfully, for when it comes it means failure. I have failed once again to fulfil the expectations of others, which have become my own. I used to think of my body as an instrument of pleasure, or a means of transportation, or an implement for the accomplishment of my will. I could use it to run, push buttons or of one sort or another, make things happen. There were limits, but my body was nevertheless lithe, single, solid, one with me. Now the flesh arranges itself differently. I'm a cloud congealed around a central object, the shape of a pear, which is hard and more real than I am, and glows red within its translucent wrapping. Inside it is a space, huge as the sky at night, and dark and curved like that, though black-red leather rather than black. Pinpoints of light swell, sparkle, burst and shrivel within it, countless as stars. Every month there is a moon, gigantic, round, heavy, an omen. It transits, pauses, continues on, and passes out of sight, and I see despair coming toward me like famine, to feel that's empty again. I listen to my heart, wave upon wave, salty and red, continuing on and on, marking time. I'm in our first apartment in the bedroom. I'm standing in front of the cupboard, which has folding doors made of wood. Around me, I know it's empty. All the furniture is gone, the floors are bare, no carpets even. But despite this, the cupboard is full of clothes. I think they're my clothes, but they don't look like mine. I've never seen them before. Maybe they're clothes belonging to Luke's wife, whom I've also never seen. Only pictures and a voice on the phone, late at night, when she was calling us, crying, accusing, before the divorce. But no, they're my clothes all right. I need a dress. I need something to wear. I pull out dresses, black, blue, purple, jackets, skirts. None of them will do. None of them even fits. They're too big or too small. Luke is there behind me. I turn to see him. He won't look at me. He looks down at the floor, where the cat is rubbing itself against his legs, mewing and mewing plaintively. It wants food, but how can there be any food with the apartment so empty? Luke, I say. He doesn't understand. He doesn't answer. Maybe he doesn't hear me. It occurs to me that he may not be alive. I'm running with her, holding her hand, pulling, dragging her through the bracken. She's only half awake because of the pill I gave her. Oh, that's it. So she wouldn't cry or say anything that would give us away. She doesn't know where she is. The ground is uneven. Rocks, dead branches, the smell of damp earth, old leaves. She can't run fast enough. By myself, I could run faster. I'm a good runner. Now she's crying. She's frightened. I want to carry her, but she would be too heavy. I have my hiking boots on, and I think when we reach the water, I'll have to kick them off. Will it be too cold? Will she be able to swim that far? What about the current? We weren't expecting this. Quiet, I say to her angrily. I think about her drowning, and this thought slows me. Then the shots come behind us, not loud, not like firecrackers, but sharp and crisp like a dry branch snapping. It sounds wrong. Nothing ever sounds the way you think it will. And I hear the voice. Down. Is it a real voice or a voice inside my head, or my own voice out loud? I pull her to the ground and roll on top of her to cover her, shield her. Quiet, I say again. My face is wet, sweat or tears. I feel calm and floating, as if I'm no longer in my body. Close to my eyes there's a leaf, red, turned early. I can see every bright vein. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I ease off. I don't want to smother her. Instead, I curl myself around her, keeping my hand over her mouth. There's breath and the knocking of my heart, like pounding, at the door of a house at night where you thought you would be safe. It's all right. I'm here, I say, whisper. Please be quiet. But how can she? She's too young. It's too late. We can't part. My arms are held, and the edges go dark, and nothing is left but a little window, very little window, like the wrong end of a telescope. Like the window on a Christmas card, on an old one. Night and ice outside, and within a candle, a shining tree. A family, I can hear the bells even. Sleigh bells from the radio, old music, but through this window I can see, small but very clear, I can see her going away from me, through the trees which are already turning, red and yellow, holding out her arms to me, being carried away. The bell wakes me, and then Cora, knocking at my door. I sit up on the rug, wipe my face with my sleeve. Wipe my wet face with my sleeve. Of all the dreams, this is the worst. Oh. Right, there we go. Going into part 6 in chapter 14. Blue leg. Oh. I am tired. There we go. Amazingly enough, this is actually quite beneficial for me because at the start of next month, I'm going to be going to do a conference in New York. So it'll be useful if I don't have to do jet lag or anything. So there we go. Right, I shall stop. And I presume the next one of these will be Monday night going into Tuesday. But we'll see how that goes.